Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and we're back with another Total War Warhammer video. Today we're going to look towards the Chaos Dwarfs, the Darwizar. While they haven't been confirmed if they will be the pre-order race or not, it still doesn't mean that we can't talk about them. Where today we're going to look at one of their possible legendary lord characters, discuss his lore, his rules on the tabletop, and how he could be implemented into Total War Warhammer. Today's character is Drazhoath the Ashen, so without further ado, let's begin. To better introduce this character to those who might not be aware of him, we'll read over his entry into the Warhammer Fantasy Battles 8th edition army supplement known as Tamukan, the Thrones of Chaos. Drazhoath the Ashen, Sorcerer Prophet of Helshard, Lord of the Black Fortress, Master of the Legion of Asgoth. For more than 1,000 years, the dark burning spire of the Black Fortress has stood sentinel over the crossing place of the River Ruin at the southern edge of the Mountains of Morn and guarded the border of the Chaos Dwarf Empire of Ash and Suffering. It is a nightmarish place of soot, blackened iron, and jagged rock, and burning magma runs through it like lifeblood. For centuries, the master of this dark domain and the warriors and slaves that inhabit it has been Drazhoath the Ashen, a twisted, power-hungry creature and potent sorcerer. Drazhoath was first sent to the Black Fortress in effective exile after losing favor in the brutal politics of Tsar Nagorond as a minor hellsmith, but has since risen to become its lord through his innate cunning and bitter, ruthless ambition. In battle, Drazhoath is both a mighty sorcerer and an able warrior, who leads his war hosts from the fore mounted upon the great Taurus Cinderbreath, bringing fire and ruin upon the enemy. Drazhoath's power has grown over the decades, and there are few sorcerers now in the service of Helshard who can match him in the arcane might or knowledge in the creation of war machines and demon binding. He also has undisputed mastery of the legions of Asgore, a potent army of Chaos Dwarfs and Hobgoblin slave soldiers based at the Black Fortress, whose duty it is to raid across the river and patrol the savage wastes of the southern Darklands, to maintain the Chaos Dwarfs' tentative dominion over the deadly, monster-plagued expanse. But for all his power and the forces at his command, Drazhoath is all too keenly aware that he has reached an impasse, and his black-hearted ambition can take him no further, for the Black Fortress is many leagues away from the center of the Chaos Dwarf Empire at Tsar Nagorond, and is ill-regarded. The voice of the Lord of Exiles carries little weight with the great conclave of Helshard's priesthood, and is in particular none with Ostrogoth Ironhand, the oldest and most powerful living sorcerer of Tsar Nagorond, and the master who sent Drazhoath into internal exile long ago. Ostrogoth is ancient beyond measure though, and the last of his powers have begun to wane. He is kept mobile only by sorcerous mechanisms of his own design, and so Drazhoath's dreams of a triumphant return to Tsar Nagorond are slowly kindled in his spiteful breast. Drazhoath needs above all a great victory to seal his prominence for when Ostrogoth finally falls, and a great flow of fresh captives and plunder into the coffers of the Chaos Dwarf Empire would go far to expand his influence beyond his own blighted domain. This, however, is not proving to be such an easy ambition for Drazhoath to achieve, thanks to the enemies which continually beset the Black Fortress, which are, after all, its reason for existing, and he has been left wanting. On the tabletop, Drazhoath was a melee caster hybrid. He was quite decent in terms of melee combat, nothing too special in terms of stats, but he was able to withstand a great deal of punishment. His spellcasting, however, was much better, as he had access to quite a few spells of the lore of Hashut. This is a unique spell lore for the Chaos Dwarfs, which we will cover in a future video. The character, of course, had one mount option, Cinderbreath, which is the mount option you can see this model riding upon in this video. A flying monstrous beast which was very potent in melee combat. The Great Taurus also was immune to fire spells, and was able to do an area of effect damage to anything around it. Together, both the Mount and the Chaos Dwarf were rather usable in frontline combat, and would likely be treated the same way in Total War Warhammer. In regards to special rules on the tabletop, the character actually only had one, known as Dark Renown, where Chaos Dwarf units, including himself, would add to their combat resolution. Of course, combat resolution does not come into play in Total War Warhammer, so I'm assuming that here it would just work as an extra leadership buff. Magic items, on the other hand, the character had a few. The first being Helshard Amulet, which blessed the character with a decent ward save. As usual, this is easy enough to implement, but there was also something extra to this item, where in close combat, the amulet would reflect any damage done to the character back to its enemy. I'm not sure if something like this could be implemented. Maybe there could be a slight chance when attacking this character that some damage could be reflected back to the unit attacking. The second item is the Demon Spite Crucible, an item which increased the casting attempts for this character. I'm assuming that this would just increase Winds of Magic reserve. Some extra bonuses were also conferred if Drazhoath or Cinderbreath managed to kill another caster, but I think that's a bit too complicated to implement into Total War. And lastly, the Graven Scepter, which gave him benefits towards doing damage in melee combat. I'm assuming here it would just focus around giving him armor piercing. But with all that being said, now we can look towards how the character could possibly be implemented. His possible start location is already pretty obvious. It is there in the Tower of the Black Fortress, which is located in the southern eastern Darklands. To those who have played the Mortal Empires campaign, it is that area which is currently unplayable in the far western portions of the map. This is why I kinda believe that there'll be the pre-order incentive, but let's not dwell on that. The character itself will obviously be fighting against many of the other races in the Warhammer world. It's established that he is the first line of defense, and pretty much there to be in a suicide mission of sense. But it is very obvious that he does not like his peers, more than likely because they had sent him into an exile, so I'm assuming that he would have some minor diplomatic relations with his own race. Slavery is very common in Chaos Dwarf history, and the Ashen himself is known to have a rather large abundance of slaves due to the fact that he's constantly at war. It could be assumed that the Chaos Dwarves as a whole, and the Ashen even more so, would benefit from some slave-like units, with the Ashen benefiting most from this, possibly having some special skills to buff them up or reduce their upkeep as a form of a trait. This means that you would be able to field more armies. Yes, granted they would be slave armies, but they would act as extra forces for yourself, meaning that you could have one full army of dwarf artillery with another army closely following behind with just slaves. They are your fodder whilst your cannons do the firing. If I can be completely honest, slavery as a mechanic needs a complete utter rework, and it would be best to release this slavery rework alongside the Chaos Dwarfs. What that would entail, however, is completely unknown. But perhaps for the Chaos Dwarfs specifically, especially for the Ashen, you could gain slaves as a resource, and then sell them for actual money. Something like that would work rather well for the Chaos Dwarfs and the Dark Elves in all honesty, but that's pretty much all I can think about for this character. He was introduced in an expansion supplement. There is nothing really too concrete about him anyway. But even then, I'd say that the character doesn't have to be that complex. Perhaps the best way to make this character more unique would be by reskinning its units to follow that of the Chaos Dwarfs in this supplement, as the Chaos Dwarfs introduced with the Tamukhan campaign were more heavily armoured, very iron suits rather than big hats. Though it's very likely that Creative Assembly will just make 1 or 2 unique units for this character. But what do you think about the Ashen? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and let's start a bit of a discussion. But with that, my friends, we've come to the end of our video. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, might I suggest giving the video a like, or even subscribing to the channel, as it really does help us out. In the description section below are various links to different social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, and Discord. Also in the description section is an affiliate link with Element Games where you could buy loads of hobby-based products, not just Warhammer, for 10 to 25% off. Making a purchase using that link and also our special code, which is also in the description, supports the channel at no extra cost to you, which we think is rather cool. A big thank you to our patrons. Your support means the world to us. It's amazing that people want to help a small channel like us grow and get to a higher level of content. A big thank you to Gibraltar LUSC, Ryan Bertsche, Andrew Prince, and Okro for subscribing to us at our Fane level. You guys are super cool. And a big thank you to Edward Yule, VS Vasan, Aaron Whitman, and Shaggy for subscribing to us at our King level. Honestly, we can't thank you all enough. And lastly, a big thank you to all of you for liking, sharing, and commenting on these videos. Honestly, it's because of you guys that the channel has been growing at such a great pace lately, so we can't thank you all enough. But with that, my friends, thank you so much for watching once again, and we shall see you all again very, very soon. Have a good day.